Good evening. It is Thursday, the 30th of August, and you are listening to the Tiger Town podcast. A little bit different tonight. The regular host is he's away with the family at the moment, so we have I'm hosting, which will probably be a bit different and probably not as quality as Zach's generally is. But we also have a regular host with me tonight in Todd. Todd, how you going?
Hello, little brother. How are you?
Better looking, brother, is probably the best way to say it.
All good. We'll get through this crap early, and then we can just get to the good stuff. Yep.
That banter. How are we?
I'm well. How's things?
Yeah, good. The season's almost ended, so I'm happy.
Yes.
I don't feel angry or upset every weekend anymore after this weekend. So no, it is what it is.
Considering the weekend of football we've got coming up and the teams that have been dropped and the fact that we have to face, given who they've got available, a full-strength Manly side, this kind of sucks. Like, you've pretty much got a reserve grade game on Thursday night between the Broncos and Melbourne because both teams have just destroyed their squads. And then we come up on Friday night at 6 o'clock and we're playing the best Manly have to offer at this point, based on injuries and stuff. So it's
surprising. Considering you wouldn't want to risk any injuries to your key players when there's nothing to play for. But we'll get into that, talk about that game a little bit later on. Might have a bit of a touch on. I'm pretty certain you actually were the smart one out of all three of us and didn't watch the game live against the Roosters. Have you had a chance to look at the highlights?
Yeah, I've checked them out.
Lowlights, probably better to say.
Well, the first half was a slog. They got in on it, and that was really good. But the second half was just, oh God, where do we begin? Just pass. We had a 13 on 12 advantage for 10 minutes when Maria Hargraves went off, which was a well-deserved 10 minutes for his late hit on Appy.
But then the headbutt as well. He's lucky he didn't get a lot sent off. Very lucky about that, if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't know about that bloke. Did you know someone told me today that that's the first time he's actually been sent off? Like, I can't... Yeah, that's the first time. I reckon they said a random fact about him that's the first time he's ever been sent off. And I was like, I can't remember him being sent off. So I'll have to Google that, or one of our listeners will probably tear us apart for some shit facts, but I'm going to check that. But yeah, that's the most disappointing part about it was the Roosters haven't played well all year. The Roosters were under strength. They were down.
They lost Joey Manu after like 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like, we have a small thread hanging on to not get the wooden spoon. So you'd expect the side to show up, and they didn't. So yeah, I didn't watch the game. I am happy to miss Tigers games because they just make me very upset and very angry. And so I decided against it, and I hate the Roosters. I hate them more than any other team in the NRL. I'll watch the Broncos, the Storm win over the Roosters any day. I hate them so much. And the fact that second half was just abysmal. So yeah, what were your thoughts overall? Because you did watch the game.
I did watch the game. I thought probably our first 30 minutes were pretty, they were subpar to what we have been doing, but they weren't horrible. The Roosters dropped a lot of ball, and we didn't take advantage of it. But I said this in the chat, and I'm going to stand by this. I think Will Smith is probably the worst first grader in the NRL right now. He is bad beyond belief. So much so, and that's not being the worst first grader in the NRL is still an impressive feat because you're better than 80% of people that play football. But
yes,
at that standard, when you have everything on the line, it's not good enough. He was that bad that Benji had to move him from halfback and then hook him because he just wasn't performing. I mean, if that, like, he's clearly given up. Like, for me, when I was watching that game, like, it was, we were wondering why he didn't put in Wakeham instead of, he didn't put Wakeham in instead of Smith. And from what I theorize is that it was to give Will Smith one last shot. You want a contract, you want to get something out of this, show me what you're made of. And he crashed and burned. He was so bad.
Yeah.
If you watch that game, now that we're not going to have the analysis that Zach sometimes has, you know, he's last few weeks he's been watching all these mistakes and really analysing it, things like that. I don't go into that. Don't have time for that. But I am pretty certain that if you go watch that game over again, he is probably personally responsible for 4 tries against us.
Yeah, right.
Either giving away a silly penalty, dropping a ball when we had the momentum and they score off the next set, an extremely, extremely poor defensive read. I mean, that Suwali try was so bad. That was so bad. He gave up. It was atrocious. But, yeah, thank God he's in the reserve grade for some, like the reserve squad. So we'll go through that later on in the pod. But how he even kept a spot is beyond me. But, yeah, I'll go through a couple of the stats too. This is how bad we were, just to show you. So possession rate was 50-50, literally 50% to 50%. Completion rate was better than the Roosters. We had 73%, they had 72%. They had more runs, more run meters than us. So that's saying something, that they had a 50-50 possession rate and they had a lower completion rate than us, but they had more runs and more running meters, so more intent. They had more post-contact meters. They had 8 line breaks to 3. So, you know, and I think probably 5 of those line breaks were down Will Smith's side. More tackle breaks. It's a lot more offloads, and that's something we've been doing really well recently, has been offloading the ball. Like, we've been getting
absolutely
that second day going, but obviously that didn't happen. And it's funny. This is actually, I don't know if you listened to the pod last week, Todd, but Zach made a comment about, you know, the Dolphins had more dummy passes than we did. And he said, as if that really matters, who cares? Yeah, this time we had a lot more because we had Will Smith in the team who doesn't know how to play football. But it's just atrocious. And then you look at the tackles. So they made more tackles. The missed tackles were pretty similar. We had 38 to 31. But the ineffective tackles were even. Everything in our defensive sort of line and our defensive stats says that we should have been on par with them. But because we had Laurie probably had his worst game of the year. Appy probably had his worst game of the year. We just had no attacking structure whatsoever, especially in that second half.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's something about certain teams, and not just the Tigers, but every team in the NRL. The Roosters have the wood over us for whatever reason. And for me, this was the only time in recent history, I'm talking the last, you could even say 10 years, that we really had a chance to beat them. And the first half, things were looking like, okay, we're in this contest. And then Manu goes off. And then to just put up that second half of just trash, you just don't know if if the season's over for them and that mentally they're done. Like, the Roosters weren't great. I tipped that the Souths will beat the Roosters this week. I don't think the Roosters will go through the finals. Even without
Trell.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with the head noise that he's got going on at the moment and all that sort of stuff. I don't think the Roosters, the last few weeks, their wins have masked a pretty poor team throughout the year. I went to the Broncos Roosters game at the Gabba a couple of weeks back. Got some free tickets, and watching them live, they were atrocious. They were dreadful. I don't think I've ever seen, and as much as I hate the Roosters, you've got to respect them for when they put those few years together, and respect the way they play their football. Like you can buy a premiership. Yeah, you can buy a premiership, but you respect the way they play their football, and they've looked terrible this year. They've looked dreadful. So this was where I thought, this is the time. We've got a small chance of avoiding this wooden spoon for the second time. They're going to turn up and beat the team that makes us look stupid on many, many occasions recently. And it was just, they, like you said, those stats, I didn't know those stats personally, but when you hear them, it's just more frustrating, really, because it's like you get blown off the park, you get smashed, okay, you cop it. But when you're 50-50 even in it, and you still lose 38-8, like that's shit. That's crap. That's absolute crap.
And this is one of those times where those probably the last 5 or 6 games, Zach and I have been very, very critical of the refs' performances. They've been very much below par, but I think it was another Todd was our referee on the weekend. Todd Smith, I think his name is.
Is that the blonde guy?
Yeah. And he was actually not bad. They let the game run, called it down the line. From what I see, Zach has a tendency to dive a bit deeper and pull a little bit more of those stats out. But from what I saw, everything looked pretty even. There is, we're talking about stats here and things like that. So you've been as well in our chat and everything, we've been very critical of Noffa, of his performances. And this is the highlight of how bad he's going and how much we need to try to find a way to offload him. He had 8 runs for 25 metres.
Oh, God, that's disgusting.
For a winger.
It's just gross.
Let's go this on to the other side. Tupou had 11 runs for 105 metres. Still not fantastic, 10-metre game, winger, but he had 3 more runs for 80 more metres than Noffa did. And then if we go to the other side of it, he had 8 tackles, 3 of them were missed. So he had almost a 50-50 missed to made tackle ratio.
That's absolutely woeful. That's dreadful.
I can't. I was pulling that up. I'm like, and he had 1 error too.
I thought he actually played really well against the Dolphins. One of his best games in many weeks, and that's not hard considering he hasn't been great. But that's dreadful. What's going on? You guys must know more than I do. What's going on with Naden? Why is he not playing?
He's got, I think it's shoulder injury.
Okay.
Last time Zach told me.
Because that's where, you'd chuck him straight in right wing just to get those meters because he's a big body, tough carries and stuff like that. Because that's what Noffa, you could forgive, and I use the word loosely, forgive his defensive lapses, the jamming that seems to never stop, because he could get you those really nice 15-metre runs out of your half and stuff like that. Those stats, that's awful. Me and you could do that.
Yeah, he crabs across the field consistently now. He's got to be pushing to get released. That's my only thing. He doesn't want to be there anymore, and he's pushing to get released. And
I mean, who would take him?
Jesus, I'd eat up 80% of his salary just to get him off the books. We've got the war chest. Someone wants to take him for $150,000, $200,000, and we'll eat up the rest. I'll be more than happy to do that. Just get him off the books.
We'll have to touch.
Hopeless.
I was just going to say, we'll have to touch on this episode on who we can look at for next season. I'm sure Zach is more than over it, but there's some players that I I'd like to talk about to see what your thoughts are, because this war chest is there, and there's not many players on the market that are open to playing for 2024. But there's a lot of players that are on the nose with a few clubs that I'm thinking we should have a stab. Like, we should see what we can get, especially outside backs. Like, we are struggling with outside backs.
We are at the moment. We've got a few coming through, but we are at the moment. So who's on your list?
First off the bat, we need to be looking at Justin Olam, straight away. The fact that he's been stuck at the Falcons, considering how good he is, there's obviously something going on at Melbourne, and I'd be willing to take him and whatever baggage is there, because you don't go off the nose at Melbourne for no reason. There's obviously something. We should have a stab at him, because our centre stock currently, and we've got a young fella debuting at centre this week, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the team, is abysmal in terms of what we've got to offer. And I didn't think so many years ago how important centres were going to become in the comp. Like, centres and wingers are so important, and like, you look at the great sides at the moment, your Penriths, your Broncos, the Warriors even. The Warriors moved Marcelo Montoya, who, in my opinion, last year and before that was a glorified reserve grader. Move him to the wing. He's one of the best wingers in the comp. Like, get him out of the centres, get a big body. So they're so important into the way that we play, and we have not a great stock of them. So that's the first person I'd go for, given what's going on at Melbourne. Look, there's a couple of others that are kind of scattered around, but he's the big one for me.
Well, I read something a while ago now. When he got dropped and people were like, oh, someone has to pick him up. He can't be a reserve grader. But it was based on, what's called KPIs, key performance indexes. And there's certain things like most people that have a job have KPIs they need to meet, need to match. For a rugby league player, it's very obviously performance driven, on the field driven, but then it's also off the field driven. So it's like, how you perform at training, things like that. And apparently he was actually on the downward slide of a lot of that stuff. And so obviously, like you said, Melbourne have a very high standard that they have to meet, and that's why they've been so successful for as long as they have, since Bellyache's been there. He's just like, if that's the case, maybe it is a change of scenery needs. I don't even know how old he is, to be honest. Could be maybe ages getting to him. Who knows?
Let me Google. I'll let you know in 2 seconds.
But yeah, back to what you said about how wing and centres are so important. So, like, Zach and I discuss this at nauseum sometimes about centre positions being probably one of the key areas, especially in terms of defence, because obviously the centre tends to dictate how everyone on the outside defends. Because, if you've got a weak half in front of you, generally you are swapped. The centre is swapped on the inside of the half. If the half is relevant, the centre still dictates what happens outside of that. So it's still it's very, very important. And, perfect example of, that not being that being the case is, when we've had Tommy Talau in the centres and doesn't communicate, he rushes in, the wing is back, they create a overlap, they score.
Absolutely.
It's that. And then, in terms of attack, I think the perfect person you can watch for this in terms of how important a dynamic centre can be in attack. You've got those amazing players that can, produce the one-arm fend, the flick, everything like that, the step, everything like that. But the way Bradman Best draws in 3 defenders almost every single time, how he hits the line really, really hard, He literally tries to bend the line every single run. He's a center. Even when he's actually running a really perfect line, he still looks like he's trying to bend the line as well as going through it. So that's why he hits it with such speed. And what that does is that creates the defense to second guess what's going to happen. So it's that half a second. So you'll see their halves come out and they'll look to pass it. And it go to one of those dynamic centers. And as soon as whoever's marking the half sees them turn their shoulders, that's when you'll see the show and go. And that's when you'll see the inside ball, or you'll see, the floater over the top, because a dynamic center like that can just do so much to a defensive structure, especially those inside men, and make them second guess themselves. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. So
absolutely, yeah. There's a reason why Best was picked for Origin, because of those sorts of things, and killed it. To be fair, he's
controversial at the time, very controversial at the time.
Yeah, I was not a fan of the call, and then after watching the game, he was sensational, and he tore Queensland apart, as did Cody Walker. But yes, Justin Olam turns 30 in December, so he's on the.
For me, that's a. Look, I think there's other people we should be looking at. I get he's on the nose, and I get this, and I get that, but the only position that I'm comfortable going for a senior person now is the halves, and we've done that. So we've got Caesar. We've got Caesar. Caesar's there to control the game, control the speed, be the game manager that we need.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be comfortable signing the 30-year-old in the centers for 3 years, because centers is still one of those positions that it's very specialty, but it's something that you can really grow into on the field. It's not like a half, It's not like a hooker, it's not like those, or a fullback, or even though it's fullback kind of, because you look at Buller at the moment. I mean, he's probably our best player, and he's only 16 games in. But a half, obviously, like they say at times again, get straps. Todd, we're live. What are you doing?
I apologise. I'm drinking beers, guys. I'm sorry.
And you interrupted my train of thought. We're going to
where were you?
We're going to bicker too, people. We're brothers. We bicker all the time. It's fine. But yeah, like a half doesn't hit their straps, as they say time and time again, till they're about 28, 29. So Brooks is about hitting that now. Let's go figure. But, they need to grow into that. They need to understand the game a lot more. They need to understand their qualities. They need to understand the speed, everything like that. Whereas center, they can learn that stuff kind of on the fly a little bit if they've been playing it their whole junior grade. It's not like you can sit there. So the example is Tupou. Tupou was an out-and-out center. We put him on the wing because he was our only option on the wing. And generally that's how it starts, is out-and-out centers start on the wing to get a feel for the game. And then his first game,
all of them did.
His first game at center, it's like that should have been his position from day one.
Yeah, what's happening there? Like, surely he's going back to that, or is it just because we've just got no other wingers, really?
Yeah, no other wingers. So Staines is still injured. Naden's injured. We've got two guys that Zach will probably remind me off air what their names are. We've got two young wingers that could have got a shot this year that both did their ACL in pre-season. We've tried Asu Kapoa there. That didn't work in any way, shape, or form.
He's better at centre if we're going to use him at all.
He's better in the back row, I think so. But that's my thought. But look, it's as far as I know, it's the only reason is because, and this is completely my own theory, I don't have Benji on the blower. I haven't called him to find out what's going on. Nothing like that. We aren't best mates yet, but if he listens to this, we can be. Don't worry about it. We will be. But it's just my theory. Yeah, hey, we've all met Benji. Everyone's met Benji. He's a lovely bloke. I'm sure he'd be fine to come on the pod as a guest speaker in a couple of years.
I would say he definitely would not be doing that. Yes.
Hey,
But
hey,
anyway,
hey. He went on The Apprentice, so
yeah,
he can do
and now
anything.
he would be avoiding anything like this, Westlife Pod, anything he would be avoiding like the plague. But
I don't
anyway,
think.
the
I don't think he would.
I'm not saying Olam is the answer to all our problems, but the biggest thing to come out of this year has been depth in that back line situation. So, I mean, not focusing on the halves with the Will Smith situation, but the first time I appeared on the pod with you two, and we were ranting and raving about Brooks and whatnot, and I was like, when can we get Will Smith into halfback? Like, we need to, piss Brooks off now and look at how poorly he's played since he's gone into that position based on injury. And if anything, Brooks has been a lot better since we had that episode, and maybe that the monkey off his back about going to Manly and all that stuff. But in the back line, especially, we kind of have been chopping and changing. We're trying to get, some sort of fluency to those guys, but it's just not happening because we can't. Like, as you said, Tupou's an out-and-out centre. We put him in there for one game. He plays great. Shit, we can't actually... We've got Staines, another perforated bowel or whatever's going on with him. He's out. Nathan's... Yeah. So the Olam situation, he wouldn't be on a lot of money. I dare say, guessing he'd be on less than Noffa, I'd guess.
Well, I don't know. I think he'd be on decent coin. I think he'd be on about 600.
Yeah, true. Would Noffa be on 550, 500? He was one of the highest paid wingers for a while there.
He's on 550, and he's still got 2 more years to go after this.
Surely we can, surely we can do something, and especially with the amount of money that we've got to spend. But then I'm also thinking, we've fallen into this trap before. We've grabbed these players that are on the arse end of their careers. Clubs are dropping them, and we're thinking they're going to save us. Like Naden was...
I don't want another Joey Leilua on our hands.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great signing at the time, but in hindsight, awful. So anyway, outside backs wise, we need to build some depth. With the young fella starting, Tristan Riley has performed good. Got his debut try last Saturday.
I think admirably is probably the right word.
He needs to learn to pass. That's one thing that he really needs to focus on in the off season, and I think he realised that too. With this young fella starting this week, there's another one to chuck in there, and then it's all over as of 8 p.m. Friday night. They can start looking to the preseason for the new season because it's over. Yeah.
See, for me, this season, like you said, there was a couple of things that were really brought to light. Obviously, we've understood that, and we actually knew that going in. Our depth in the halves was pretty poor. I mean, we only signed a backup halfback like January of this year, and that was Brandon Wakeham.
Yeah.
This was an idea that I floated in the chat, and I think it was vetoed by Zach, but I don't know what your thoughts were. We need another half that has a bit more, because we've got these young guys coming through. We've obviously got Fainu, but he's an out-and-out halfback, 5'8", and then we've got Sullivan coming through. And for all intensive purposes, and again, do not have an inside word, but this is what I have read, and this is what would make sense, is that Sullivan would eventually move into the halfback role. So we've got those two. Because it'd be unlikely Caesar will go more than... Maybe he'll get a 12-month extension if they don't feel that Sullivan's ready. Or Fain's ready. He might get a 12-month extension. But I think we still need a quality half that is pushing to make a bit of a game or finish in the NRL. And so I had Josh Drinkwater coming back to this club.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, Drinkwater is obviously Scott Drinkwater's older brother. Played for the Tigers, I think, mid-2010s. He was very young then, started at the Dragons. Now he's been overseas playing his trade I think he's still at Catalans, but he could have moved on. Super League tends to chop and change a bit.
I
But
thought he was at Castleford.
could be Castleford
Was
now.
he at the? Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Again, as you said, they loan out.
Yeah, he definitely was at Catalans, but I don't know how long ago that was. I'm not looking up. I'm not looking it up right now because
I can do it.
But for me, having that player who's hungry to at least he's plied his trade overseas. You know, it's another Aiden Caesar, just a couple of years younger. I think Josh Drinkwater is potentially 30. It means he's probably got another couple of years left in him, left in his legs. And he's trying to, ply his trade back in the NRL. You know, I think that's not and he knows the club. He's been with the club before, knows Benji. I think that's something we should definitely consider moving into next year is don't just go for a half that's on the outer. Go for a half that has plied their trade over in the Super League and is looking to finish it. So you could even potentially Lola here is playing for the Red Devils, Salford at the moment, or is he playing? Actually, he might be playing for Huddersfield. Could be playing for Huddersfield. But
Drinkwater's at Warrington. I can tell you that right now. And Tui Lola here.
But those guys
he is at Huddersfield. You are correct.
Huddersfield. Yeah. Someone like that is looking to come back to Australia, retire in Australia, but still have a bit of that fire and that burn. You've got it time and time again. In hindsight, we shouldn't have let Jackson Hastings go. All three of us weren't exactly thrilled with the move. All three of us were, why didn't they offload Brooks? And, again, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But
we don't seem to get these decisions right very often, the Tigers. Yeah. They just don't seem to get it right. To think that we could have, but then again, if rumour is to be believed, Hastings and Bateman do not get along, and Bateman was the big signing that was going to, make or break us, and unfortunately it's gone the other way. A name I'll throw in there from the Super League chat is why not Pearce?
He doesn't want to come back to us.
Well, he never came to us to begin with, but rumors are that no one's really knocking the door down to bring him back. So we could be one to, throw the lifeline out to him. It does mean that we'd be holding Caesar and Pearce, which kind of means you've got one or the other, and you've probably got the younger version of Pearce is Caesar, the same, very similar style of game that they both play. But you could run Pearce at 6, run Caesar at 7. You've just got more depth there. And if no one's going to go for Pearce and he still wants to come home, which is the rumour, we may as well. Like the whole glory of his dad's days and the Balmain stuff, that's a big thing. I'm not saying he'd be the saviour of the club by any means. It's a depth signing, if anything, which is a bit of an insult to him because he's been an established halfback for a lot of years and achieved a lot of stuff in the game.
It'll never happen. For that fact alone, he will retire instead.
I think so too. I think it's not a bad option for us, but I think it's more so his own. I don't want to say ego because it sounds like he thinks he's bigger than that, but it is kind of the situation that he's in. Like he's not signing on here to be our backup. Like he's coming back to a club to run the team. Like he's coming back as the number 1-7 for that club. Which a few clubs could use him. I'm sure the Gold Coast would probably look at him now that Ben Hunt's staying at St. George. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. The depth in the half this year, I don't want to say it because it's not fact, but I'm almost guaranteeing had Dewey not got injured and Brooks's terrible run of injury, we ain't getting a spoon this year. Like there are clubs a lot worse than us. like a lot worse, and a little bit more creativity in the halves, which is what Dewey and Brooks bring. Yeah, we're not getting the spoon.
No. Like, in all honesty, I would have. We wouldn't have got the spoon if Brooks and Appy didn't get injured. Just those two wouldn't have got the spoon.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a simple case of the same thing. The same thing happened last year, where Newcastle were far and above the worst team in the comp, and we ended up with the spoon. This year, the Dogs are far and beyond the worst team in the comp. We're gonna get the spoon because it's just they got a few wins more than us, and that's the way it goes. And yeah, as you said, a bit more depth in the halves, quality depth is the word we want to use. Possibly would have salvaged us from the spoon, which is unfortunately coming our way. And I did double check this. The ideal situation for this weekend, guys, is that I'm going to be conservative. We win by 40 and the Dragons lose by 40. And then we don't get the spoon. So that's how good.
Look, it still could happen. See,
absolutely. Anything is possible.
The one name that we threw out at the start of the year was Ronald Volkman. So he's a young guy over the Warriors at the moment. Now, obviously, how good they've been going with Metcalf in the halves and Johnson side an extra year, you'd have to say that he's now fourth behind in the pecking order because Tamari Martin's back as well. He's back from injury this week. So you've got he's fourth in line. He comes to us, he's third in line. That's the facts. So I'd look at Ronald Volkman as well, see if he wants to come back to Australia. But we need some depths around those key areas. I mean, we've got I think we've got our depth in our hooker sorted.
Yes.
I think we probably got our depth in our fullback sorted. I think that's, or we should. I'd like to say that, they're pressing to re-sign Staines, considering he's been one of our best outside backs all year when he's been on the field.
I'd agree with that. Yep, absolutely.
And he's our first choice, one of our first choice wingers, picked every week. But yeah.
Again, he's one we've really missed throughout the year. And not that a winger can really change a result, but someone with his work ethic and stuff like that, the way he can, score a try, start the sets, all that sort of stuff. That's things that those 1%ers that can go to winning those games where we've lost by 2, lost by 4, lost by 6, No,
exactly. And that's, there's just, it's very quiet at the moment in terms of signings. We got a couple of endorphins released when we read, Sullivan and Caesar had finally been, announced. But it's been a bit quiet on the re-signing front. I like to think that there's a couple of people that have deserved to not go to November in terms of hitting the open market. Word is that they're working with Tupou to re-sign him for a couple of years.
Fantastic.
But apart from that, I haven't heard anything else. Zach hasn't either. And, Zach and I obviously talk about this a bit. But the big one, I'd love to just hear some news on Staines. I'd be very, very annoyed if we let him go. The only way that I wouldn't be annoyed is if somebody paid ridiculous overs for him to play fullback. That's it.
Absolutely. I don't think there's too many clubs out there that the only club that possibly with the money they've got that would pick him up for what we're going to pay him, if not a little bit more, would be the Bulldogs. And you sort of would have heard about that by now. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that hopefully he stays. He's been a fantastic asset this year in a really abysmal season, and fingers crossed he can stick around. Yeah, there was this week with the rumblings coming out about Stefano and Ice not being happy, Isaiah Papali'i, not being happy and waiting to come back to para effectively, and to have Ice come out and publicly say, "Oh, look, that's just not true." That's really, really good stuff to hear. He put his full support behind the club and what we're trying to do, and he understands that this year sucks. Like he hasn't liked being a part of it, but he's there for the long haul, and that's good stuff to hear, because sometimes when these rumors come out and players go quiet, you start to go, "Oh Jesus, here we go, it's coming."
Didn't stop the media putting their own spin on the interview, buddy. I don't know if you read it.
I watched the video, so yeah, I didn't read it.
The media's put their own spin on it as always, and as our listeners know, I bash the media as much as I can because they're absolutely hopeless and they're in it for the clickbait. But they said that he didn't completely reassure Tigers fans, because he said, "I'm 100% here for next year." But he has a 2-year contract. Why isn't he here until the end of his contract? Why didn't he say that? I'm like, I hate you, media. I hate you so much.
Oh, at the end of the day, as soon as we've spoken about this, as soon as we start winning, they'll stop picking on us. That's the biggest thing. Like,
they'll find another way to do it.
When we smashed the Cowboys, honestly, the script was flipped for the first time in so many years, and the Cowboys were just hammered to the shithouse. Obviously, the reverse happened a couple of weeks later, and we got obliterated, and then it comes back to us. So it's, as soon as we start winning games, as soon as we start looking like a competitive football team that's going to do something. Yeah, it's funny that I do agree with what you're saying about the media. Like, there's certain teams that seem to get a free pass. The Gold Coast is one that I can never understand how they don't get the scrutiny they deserve. That club, I hate that franchise. That's a quality. That's a fantastic first grade team. Like that, on paper, they've got the best prop in the game in Tino, the best second row in the game in Dave Fafita. Kieran Foran's there. Their backline is stacked. Their depth is sensational, and they're shit. They are a shit club, like, in terms of what they do. I don't hear boo about them. Then again, they got 10 fans, so no one really cares anyway. But
that's the only reason, because the Tigers have so many fans, so many loyal fans who read their stuff, get involved with their stuff, everything like that. They're like, we've got to write something about them, but it can't be positive, because if we write something positive, it's not going to get all the clicks that we want it to.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's been just the same old story for so long. They just continue it on. Anyway, why don't we get on to the game this week, because we're going to just keep ranting if not. Unless there's something else you want to touch on.
Nah, I'm good. I've got the team list here ready to go, so we'll go through it. So, Friday at 6 p.m. at 4 Pints, we are playing the Manly Seagulls. It's obviously our last game of the year, thank God. But we want to finish on a high. We want to finish like we've got some momentum going into the new year, into the new season. A few people probably are playing for a position in this, so they need to realise that as well. So at fullback, we got Dream Buller. And on the wings, we've got, I don't know how he keeps getting it because of our depth, but we got Noffa and Tupou on the other one. In the centres, we got Tristan Riley and Josh Felitti, the young guy you were talking about. He makes his debut, which is exciting to see.
18 years old. Fantastic.
Yep. Our halves, thank God Will Smith has been given the punt. We've got Dane Laurie and Abbey in the halves. It's the best we can do. It's what we've got. Shows how much depth we don't have. Up front, we've got Alex Twal and David Clemmer. So Steph is out through injury. Now we've got Jake Sinkin at hooker. So he's back after that head knock.
Yeah, playing well.
Yeah, back row. So Bateman's out. And Pole's been moved to the bench, actually. So he's the impact forward. So we've got back row is Papali'i. Blore is back, which is awesome. Back in the starting side. And then Matamua locks the scrum. So, everyone seems to think that he's potentially our future lock for times to come. So we're going to see how he goes. On the interchange bench, we've got Asu Kapawa, Fanua Pole, and Alex Seyfarth. And another debutant in Kit Lauali'i. So we've talked a fair bit about him on the pod. Really exciting guy coming through. So really
another 18-year-old.
Yep. And so this is something that Zach and I discussed last week. I think you'll see a lot of these 18-year-olds play a lot of cup next year, get them ready for a few years' time. And then our reserves are 18 is TDS. That's Talon De Silva, for anyone that doesn't know anymore. Brandon Wakeham at 19, Will Smith at 20, Tarsi James at 21, and Tommy Talau at 22. And another thing is, apparently this is a historical week. There are 2 women referees this week.
Yeah. So do we get Belinda Sharp?
We do, thank God. We don't get Casey Badger.
Yeah. Badger's, her bunkering lately has been atrocious.
Everything lately. But she was on a wing. She was on a touch sideline for one of our games a couple of weeks ago. She was on the. I'm pretty certain. No, it wasn't her. But she was on the sideline for one of the games where missed a very blatant forward pass or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah, fantastic for them, and that's an amazing feat. Like, to think that we're going to have not 1 but 2 female referees in the NRL.
I just wish it wasn't Casey Badger. I'd like another female. I just think that she is exactly like all the other referees in that she is incompetent.
Good thing we got.
I've liked Belinda Sharp for a while. I've watched her ref a couple of, obviously the women's league is a little bit different, a little bit slower than the men's league at the moment, but does a pretty stand-up job. So I'm kind of glad she's there. But yeah, anything with our lineup that surprises you, makes you happy, pisses you off.
Look, I'm glad for the 2 boys that are going to get debutants, because it's a hard, as much as we talk about our depth and how hard it is to keep the quality in, to actually make your debut in the NRL is a huge deal. And so good on these 2 blokes for having a go. Like, they must be over the moon. Look, half the teams are playing their reserve grade squads. We don't get that luxury. Manly have a very good team that they'll be fielding, and they'll be looking for a bit of retribution for the fact they're not playing finals, and they'll want to make a statement. So it's going to be a really, really tough game. Really tough.
Well, for
quickly,
instance, just go for instance, because you're saying that Manly are playing close to their full strength side. This is what their paper looks like. So you got Kohler on the fullback, their third choice fullback with no Turbo and no Garrick. They've got Saab.
He's awesome, man.
He was so good on the weekend. I don't know if you watched his highlights. He's so quick.
Yeah, he's just like lightning.
Yeah. On the wings, you got Saab and Tuamalo Vega. In the centres, you got Parker and Harper. You have Jake and DCE, Jake Arthur and DCE. Your pack is Sipley, Kepi with Croker at hooker. 11 is Olakawatu, Travojevic and Travojevic. And then you've got that young Chan Kam Tong, Madison, Woods, and Bullymore. And then, the bloke that decided to go to Manly and can't even get a start is Tuolagi, who's 18th man. So, yeah, good on you, mate.
Oh, well, that makes me happy. So that's pretty much the best Manly can put out at the moment, really. So it's going to be a tough game. Look, the side we've put through is exactly what I expect for the last game of the year based on what we've got available. There's no one that really, should be there that's not. Seyfarth has been one that's surprised me in recent weeks by how well he's been playing.
Yeah, the thing that annoyed me the most is he had his worst game last week.
Yeah, they all did. Like, there's nothing you can say about that. I'll add to it, though, off topic. It shits me off that Manly, of all teams, have Four Pines Stadium. Four Pines is owned by CUB. Four Pines is a craft brewery, and you can walk in there and you can buy multiple Four Pines beers and enjoy them with the game and everything like that. Leichhardt, Campbelltown, they're surrounded by breweries. So why don't we have a brewery that's in there, a Tiger beer, some sort of beer that related to the Tigers? Instead, we drink VB at Leichhardt. Like, fuck me dead, mate. It's
because Tigers are known as the working class team, mate. Nobody drinks your
working class lager.
Nobody drinks your wanker beer.
They do. Anyway, that's just a conversation for another time. So, yes, team wise, I'm pretty happy. How are you feeling with it? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, there's not much else we can do with it. Would have liked to have just seen them punt an offer. I just think that he if anything, he's a liability now. Just punt it. Just say, like, I get that, Benji probably has a good relationship with Noffa, but he's got to get away from that now. He's, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
But he has a saying in that where he's like, I can't get in a personal relationship with these players because I have to cut them next day. So if he's got a personal relationship, he's just got to get over that because he has to be seeing what we're all seeing. He has to be seeing it. Because if he's not, he's blind as a bat.
Absolutely.
And it worries me for the future.
In terms of these two debutants, so they're not part of our top 30, are they? So how does that work? Because you and Zach are more over this than I am.
Zach's probably more over this than I am. I think because
there's obviously
they're development players.
You can play them in these sort of games.
I think you can play them after round 20. Zach will probably correct me next week when we do our season recap. But I think you can play them after round 20 if they're development players.
That does sound actually familiar, so that's probably right. Yeah, look, I mean, what can you say, really? This is it. You just hope for the best, expect the worst, really. It's been a disastrous season. As we've spoken about, it went from, start of the season, we want to finish top 8 to the end of the season. We just don't want the wooden spoon, and now we're getting it again. And I don't think we deserve it. I think we're definitely not a top 8 team. We're far from it, but we're not the worst team in the comp. There's teams with a lot more.
No, I think if you listen to the podcast next week or maybe the week after, depending on, might give it maybe after the grand final we'll do a review of the whole season. But we're going to probably look at all the games that we should have won and why we didn't get them. And I probably, because we've only won 4 games all year, so that's 23 games.
Pretty easy.
But I think you'll find at least 6 or 7 of them were not by our doing in terms of losing them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's exactly right. Yeah, there's been a lot that's gone against us this year. Anyway, all right. So, what's your prediction for the week? What are we saying?
Oh shit, I don't know. I don't know if you've been listening lately, but I don't really give score prediction. I gave a score prediction last week, and it's stuffed up. So I'm not doing score predictions anymore. I don't do.
Well, I'm saying Tigers by 40, Dragons to lose by 40, us to get 16th place.
Just go all in.
Done.
Right, okay.
Who cares?
Cool.
All right.
I do have we do our bold prediction of what we think something big might happen in that. And for me, I think Felitti will he'll crash over for a try on debut.
Love it. Awesome. I'll second that. That sounds fantastic. I'm keen on that.
Sure.
And
cool.
I think that's probably pretty fair. That'll do. I'll show off my new hat.
Oh yes, go everyone.
Yeah. So these are from the Culture Kings. From Culture Kings, they're doing the retro hats. So you've got your Balmain there. They've got a West one as well. These are sensational. But I did break a rule because I said I'm not purchasing any merchandise to do with this team.
You didn't buy it from the Tigers.
Exactly. And, given it's Culture Kings, who knows if it's official or not? I don't see it.
Just so everyone's aware, we are not sponsored by Culture Kings, but if you want to get on board, you can do it.
Oh, shit, yeah. I'll take some shit. NRL Heritage, so I guess they are. So, yeah. But they are the nicest hats. So they've got every single retro team there. I think they've even got Illawarra. So if any Steelers fans are out there, go for it.
They probably don't do our pod anyway, so.
No, I wouldn't either.
So like we do every week, Zach does every week, the typical PSAs. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Obviously, this is out on YouTube by the time you're listening to it, and on Spotify as well. But the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to tell you to go follow the other podcasts. I want you to stay here and listen to us.
Yeah, we're fantastic.
Yeah, where someone said to us the other day, we're the second best podcast, Tigers podcast going around at the moment. And you know what? That's blowing my head up. Let's do it.
That's a compliment. I like it.
So, but yeah, apart from that, I'm not going to mention them. They don't even mention us, so why should I bother? Zach's probably going to berate me for that, but I don't care. I'm controlling it this week, so I'm doing it my way. Well, Todd, thank you so much for joining us tonight and stepping in for Zach. Zach,
no worries, guys.
Hopefully I did you justice by hosting it. And Todd, as we always do at the end of these pods, go the Tigers.
Go the Tigers. By 40. 40.